Madam Chair, thank you for joining us at House. I think because of time constraints, we're going to go ahead and get started. We do have our ranking en route, so she should be here any minute. So we have three bills conferenceable in between the health, in the Senate side and the House side. If it is okay with you, I know two of them are House bills, but I think the first one, 2262, is relatively, I think we can get through that one fairly quick. If it's okay, if we could do that, and since it's a House bill, I will refer or defer to you and let you take over.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we appreciate your patience with today. Our schedules just are not coordinating at all. House Bill 2262 is our controlled substance bill, and what we'd like to do is take the language from 2262 and place that in House Bill 2540. Then we have, and I don't know, Scott, if you have the other piece that would go with this, would be adding fentanyl strips. That was language, and Scott will hand this out, that we had in another bill that the House feels is important for us to pass. And that would be the two pieces that would go. So it'd be the language from 2262 into 2540, and then the fentanyl strip piece that was just handed out.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just so that I understand what we're doing. So we're going to strip the contents out 2540, insert the contents of 2262, and the amendment that we are looking at addresses the contents of 2262, which is now in the 2540, correct? That's the language that we are amending?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We're all moving kind of fast and catching up, so you're fine, Senator.
Madam Chair, this is the first time we've had a discussion on the fentanyl strips. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I think we kind of may have mentioned it. This was actually an amendment, and staff will tell me if I'm speaking out of line because we've all had a lot going on today. This was an amendment that was added on the floor by Representative Prost last year when we did the bill, and that's where it came from. And I had to learn in the process because I was having a hard time understanding how these strips would work on dry ingredients. So I Googled and I learned that you can crush it up and add water in a bag and then use your strip in it. Then you let it dry. So then you go back to powder. Sounds like a big process. Or you crush it up into a bag, dump it out, take what's the residual, put water, and then you can test with the strip. And it allows you to find out whether or not the substance you have in front of you has any fentanyl in it. It doesn't tell you the quantity, it just tells you it's got fentanyl.
Madam Chair, I think the Senate position would have preferred to have not had an amendment in there, but I think that we are, I think we are going to be okay, and then we're going to accept that, and
Okay,
2540, you can get that CCRB out and
all right.
for signatures.
Thank you, appreciate
Thank you.
it, Senator. So we will sign this report tonight, correct?
Correct, yes. Do you want to do the next one, new House bill, or do you want to do the Senate bill next?
Well, I think that we, as far as 2280, we've had some miscommunication this week because I thought we had settled on some potential new language and then discovered yesterday that we had not. And at this stage that we're at, we're not willing to move on that with what you're offering, Senator. We're still looking, I've got folks still looking at it, but we're just not there yet.
Okay. We'll turn our attention to Senate Bill 19 now. I think we do have a couple of amendments. Jenna, if you would pass those out, please.
Are there more, is there more than one amendment? Okay.
Yes. Do you guys have any, or all from our side? Okay.
No, we think after 2 years, we're good.
Okay. Unfortunately for the Senate side, I think this is the first.
Well,
We've had a
I'm
couple of
impressed.
days.
I am impressed with the potential changes coming, Senator.
All right, good deal. I think everybody has the amendment. And actually, on page 3 where it says direct, I think we can strike that for now because that will be the second amendment. Language will correct that. So on page 3, strike that change. And on page 5.
Senator, you're adding direct?
No, we're not on this one. We're not on the second amendment that we offer will have language that will be different, that will address that. It's more defined.
Okay, how about if we do this, we'll look and see what, when you get to that language, and then that I can,
Sure.
Scott's been on top of this with me for a couple years now, so.
Sure. And then the next change, if you turn to page 5, it inserts a new subsection 2. And this is monies credited to the fund shall not be used to pay expenses that are attributed to persons or entities who are domiciled outside the state. So this would just ensure that Kansans are benefiting from this. And then on
Okay.
page 6, oh, go ahead, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. The
And
reason I raise a question is I want to check with some folks and make sure that if we have a situation where we have someone from out of state that's here in our state at the time, visiting friends, whatever. Of course, everybody comes to Kansas for our lakes. No, I'm joking.
strip pits, God's country.
Well, I think it's God country, born and raised, and I haven't left this state. So we just want to take a look at it and, make sure that that we will still be able to provide services for anyone that is in the state of Kansas.
Sure, sure.
Okay?
You ready for the next one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then on page 6, it starts a series of changes, and this is to the membership. It's going to shrink that membership of the council down. Changes the 988 Coordinating Council voting members from 15 to 11, and the 13 voting members appointed by the governor to 9. So where it has 2 members representing information technology, it'll go to 1. Then over on page 7, it will strike 1 member from the Kansas Department for Children and Families. And then oh, sure.
All right.
Then on line 10, it'll take from 2 members to 1 member representing the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Line 12, take to 1 member from 2 members representing the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and change those numbers to 200,000. And the thought behind the 200,000 was to make sure at least one would come from have an opportunity to come from a larger community or county.
Well, I think, Senator,
Lower
and I appreciate the way you're thinking, because when I read these lines in here, I took it that line 10 and 11 would be our smaller counties, and that 12 and 13 would cover the larger counties. Would that be correct, Scott?
Yeah, and I think my thought process was that because you have quite a few counties, well, I say quite a few, over 75,000. So you have the Johnson counties, the Sedgwicks and Douglas, that at least one of those counties would have some type of representation.
Yeah, I think they're covered on 12 and 13 with the way the bill's already written. That's, except for 2. I mean, the 1, we're good with the 1. But it would be Sedgwick or Johnson then that would be appointed in that line there. So I don't know what we need to move to 200, but.
Okay. Well, we'll look at that. If you'd prefer 75, we can take it back. So, let me know if you're ready to proceed.
I think I'd like to stay at 75 if you're good with that on both.
Yeah, we can do that, Jenna.
All right.
Line 25, remove the member representing VoIP.
Okay.
And then line 29, remove the member recommended by the Kansas Geographic Information Systems Policy Board.
Okay.
Line 31, remove the 1 member recommended by the Kansas Office of Information Technology Services.
Yes.
And then in line 33, remove the member from the Mid-America Regional Council.
Okay.
And that would be it on as far as the membership. And then on page 8, as far as the council is concerned, I would like to have a sunset date of 2024, just for the council section.
Can you give me a moment?
Definitely.
Senator, we don't have a problem with the idea of a sunset. Our preference, though, would be to take that to 4. Because this first year is going to be, I mean, we have ComCare in Sedgwick County, and then the Community Mental Health Center in Johnson County is up and running as call centers right now. And then we'll be adding our third one. So I think there's going to be a need for that advisory board to be out there. We can always change it at any time, but I would prefer to go to 4 rather than 2, if that'd be all right.
Yeah. So make sure that we understand the right date. So instead of expiring on July 1st, 2024, your counter offer is expiring on July 1st, 2026? Okay, give us just a quick second. Madam Chair, I think we are okay with extending that out 2 years just because of how new this program is. But my ranking has a question and maybe a suggestion.
Okay.
I was looking at the list, and one of the number I that was struck was one member recommended by the Mid-America Regional Council, who's a resident of Kansas. I was sharing with my chair that I'm very familiar with the Mid-America Regional Council, and I think that that representation is an asset to be on the 988. But I wondered what was the original thought for having someone from the Mid-America Regional Council that's a Kansas resident on this.
Senator, I don't have notes in front of me that tell me that. I mean, I can go and check for it. We kind of started out when we put the council together, we started out mirrored from 911, what they have done. And that's why it's kind of gone through some evolving changes, because we didn't need the exact things that they did. And I know that there's been conversation on your side that you folks thought the council was perhaps too big. And this is the numbers that we came down to and the individuals.
I was just suggesting that we keep that member. I think they're, for coordination within the metropolitan area, the greater Kansas City metropolitan area, they're a great asset. They have representation from all the municipalities and counties within Wyandotte, Leavenworth, Johnson, I think Miami, also but of course there is representation from the greater Kansas City, Missouri side as well, but this would have to be a Kansas resident. So there's a lot of coordination with both local and federal.
And I'm going to throw something off the top of my head, and I'm going to see what my colleagues think as I do this. I don't have a problem with that, Senator, but I don't know that there's other individuals I would like to remove from that. So in order to put that person back on, we'd have to add 2 rather than 1. And so my thought would be that we bring back on the Mid-America Regional Council, and then take the greater than 75, which is on line 13, and make that 2 members. Wait a minute, I'm crossing voting members and non-voting members. Let us take a look at that and see where we can, what we can come up with. Well, doesn't it work, though, if we're going to add 2 members? Because if we accepted the amendment to go to, yeah. If we accepted their amendment to go from 15 to 11, then couldn't we go ahead and add 1 from the voting and the non-voting, or not? Does that throw the numbers off? Go ahead, you can tell me I'm crazy, Scott. It's late enough.
Madam Chair, so based on the amendment, you are at an odd number of voting members. The Mid-America Regional Council member was a non-voting member. So to add a second member on top of that, if they were a voting member, would put you back at an even number, which is a policy choice for you to make, but just so you're aware of that.
Madam Chair, while you're thinking there, I wanted to ask Jenna. Jenna, I noticed on page 5 at the bottom in line 43, section 6, and there's a small a that's inserted there.
Yeah, that's an error. We don't need the A.
Oh, okay. That's what I was trying to figure out. Thank you.
If you're okay, Senator, I'd like to go ahead and accept what, assuming my colleagues are fine, we'll accept what you've offered here, but we will take into account adding that 1 member back and come back on to you with it. If that'd be all right.
Yeah, that's fine. So we're going to do the 11 and 9, and then we're going to talk some more about adding the 10th back on, correct?
Right, but that would have to be it. We'd have to come up with an odd number on that.
Okay,
And that's when I want to give it some thought as to what we do with it.
okay. Sure. And it is non-voting, so
Right.
we appreciate that. So we'll look at that. So just to clarify, make sure we are under agreement with what this amendment will do. Currently, it has direct on page 3, but we're hoping to change that on the next
With the next amendment.
amendment. Then money's credited to the fund per state, but then we're going to, you guys are going to reevaluate it and do some discussion, and we're going to come back to that part. Then on the membership, going to 11 and 9, but instead of going to 200,000, taking it back to 75,000 where it was originally at, and then look into whether or not bringing back Mid-America Regional Council. Okay. And then the expiration or the sunset date of July 1st, 2026 instead of July 1st, 2024.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And then if we're ready, we'll go ahead and go to the next. Hold on just a second. Okay, I think that takes care of that amendment. And Jenna, can you hand out the second one, please? We'll talk about that. Okay. Oh. She's got one. She's got, we're good now. Madam Chair, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, I'll let my vice chair explain her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say thank you to 4 different representatives from the different stakeholders in this bill who took the time to meet with me, answer all of my questions, and some of the concerns from some of my colleagues in the Senate who've heard about this bill. And I think that this addresses it, and what exactly are we saying that would be paid for? So in the definition on the first page, crisis receiving and stabilization services means short-term services in statute that is less than 72 hours with capacity for diagnosis, initial management, observation, and crisis, which is on the first page. So we took that definition and applied it to, on page 16, section B, which would read, fund payment for crisis receiving and stabilization services provided to an individual in direct response to a hotline center call if such individual is uninsured or such services are not covered by such individual's insurance.
Okay, where was the 72 hours?
It's in statute, it's just not on here. There is a statute regarding stabilization services.
All right.
Madam Chair, I've got, this question is for the reviser. Jenna, do we need to reference that statute?
Thank you for the patience. Jenna Moyer, Revisor Statutes Office, Scott and I discussed. And if we want it to be clear that the crisis receiving and stabilization services are limited to 72 hours, a reference to the 72 hours would be helpful. Yes. If the goal of this amendment language is to restrict the services that are paid for to be only ones before 72 hours, that sort of emergency observation and treatment period, then a reference to that 72 hours would probably be helpful.
So then how would that fit in here? Because we were just talking while we were, as you guys were looking over that, and that first line, it just doesn't read right. Something's not flowing properly. Understand the intent, so we're not in dispute of the intent. It's just how the words come out sometimes don't flow.
Madam Chair, if I may, what we talked about, I had talked about this earlier, was perhaps on the first page in line 16, adding the words less than 72 hours. But then I was told, since it was already in statute, that probably wasn't necessary. But we can certainly put that in here if it appears to be necessary.
One, for me, it's that it reads right, and two, that what our revisers say, I trust them a lot. It's their words that go in the statute, not mine.
Right. We had quite the discussion about this earlier today.
No, I think we're in agreement with the concept, it's just the words. So we're making an Okay, now that my colleagues are back and they kind of visited with one of our providers out there, we think the crisis and stabilization, we would remove the word receiving. Is that acceptable or not? And, yeah, crisis stabilization services.
Okay, so just so we understand, in the balloon where it says crisis, so after crisis, you're going to strike on that line receiving in the dash and then and. And it's just going to say crisis stabilization services. Okay.
Throughout the bill.
Throughout the bill. That was
Throughout the
going to be
bill.
my next
Yeah,
question. That's the
that-
only way it would make sense.
Right, that way. There was something about that receiving was just throwing me
Just-
off, and I couldn't
I had to
say.
use the definition on the first page, which is
Right.
why I brought it up in the first place. Thank
Right.
you.
And so that clarifies the 72 hours by changing those words?
The 72 hours? So will that go, where does that fit in here then?
And again, Madam Chair, if I may, if that, my understanding is should, in the part of the stabilization process, someone need to be temporarily in a facility, mental health facility or whatever, that's the short-term part.
Right.
Would be the 72 hours. Otherwise, most of these things, like stabilization, as they said, 90% of the time, that's done over the phone, calming the
Right.
person down, et cetera. But should it come to that degree to where that is needed, there's the diagnosis, the initial management observation, and follow-up services that, again, we'd rather than them going to prison or at an ER situation that, with a mental health situation, we would like to see somebody put in a facility that's better equipped to take care of them. But what does short-term mean? And that's when
Right. No, we're fine
we
with the
refer to that.
72 hours. I'm
So
just trying
I'm
to
with
find.
you. If I could figure out
where
where
it
to
at.
put it, I would have put it. I just can't find a right place that,
That's why we have
Plug it in.
Jenna and Scott right here.
right.
Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's a fairly simple fix in the definition of what will now be crisis stabilization services in the definition section on page 1. We would suggest that those services mean short-term services for up to 72 hours with capacity for diagnosis, and the rest would remain the same.
So we're inserting the words up to 72 hours, correct? I think that reads a lot better.
And so just going back and clarifying, so on the definition, are we removing the receiving part on that as well under definition?
Receiving and receiving plus the word and.
Okay. In the definition as well
Yes.
as the balloon? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's kind of like someone asking you to turn left and you say right when you should have said okay.
Okay, I think we've cleared up that muddy water on that one, so do we have anything else to discuss on this one?
If you would give me just a moment to step out, and then maybe we can wrap up the other two questions that I had on the First Amendment. I would say we're definitely in agreement with the way we've modified your second one.
Okay, we could, but we're supposed to be back on the floor at 8:45 and it's 8:53.
Or less.
Okay. House was?
Okay, I think that, Senator, we can, on your First Amendment, we had in question the word direct on page 3. We're fine there. Is that insert? Okay,
It was taken out because it was in the Second Amendment.
that's right. Then on page 5, we had the monies credited to the fund shall not be used to pay expenses that are attributed to persons or entities who are domiciled outside this state. And I think we're good with that. I know we are.
Okay, and a question for the revisers. I think we still need to update one area on page 7, line 37. It says of the 13 voting members. Get those corrected. Okay. Okay. Let's,
Well, we got one other thing on that page, but go ahead, Senator.
no, okay, go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right, and then you had the recommendation to add back in the one member recommended by the Mid-America Regional Council, who is a resident of Kansas. And I'm, Representative Reese had the same concern as you did, Senator, and I think we can accept that. And being it's non-voting, the numbers are irrelevant.
Okay. I think we won't take any action on this yet.
Right.
We'll go and,
Do you agree with
if we can get, I think we've got the language that we have pretty set to go, and I think everybody's okay on that. So we have got to get to the floor. Not sure what we're caucusing on, but I understand you guys are caucusing on gaming, so that's going to be interesting, I guess.
Earlier.
Or did you guys already do it?
Well, our sports betting, is there something else that we don't know about revisers? They don't know, they're health people.
What was your vote on, what was your vote on sports betting, so we know what the over and under was?
I can't tell you because I didn't support it, so.
I'm not either. I was yanked from the conference committee because I wouldn't.
Oh, we haven't run the report yet? Oh, that's what it is, it's a conference. Yeah, we had the bill, we just haven't run a conference committee report, so that's where we're at, but.
Oh, okay. So,
Okay, so what could happen here, we did move ahead to 2540 with that replaced language, that conference committee report will move. This one here has the language that will end up in it once we're ready to approve, to move that conference committee report, and then you still want to talk 2280, so we'll see where we're at.
that is correct, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very